Blessings, blessings, blessings. Hello. Welcome to Truth Talks with Charlie. Another week. We're doing co-creation with Spirit featuring Athena. So, just FYI, Truth Talks with Charlie is exploratory conversations that are led by curiosity and awe. We come together just to talk with the guests about their lives, whatever they're journeying through, and we just stay curious about it. There's no right or wrong. This is all about just exploring what's possible in life, and a reminder that each of us is an individual and that what our lives look like may look different, but nonetheless, we're all showing what's possible in our human experience. So, I realized too... Hey, cousin. I realized that I left my paper on the printer. Hi.
Hi.
I realized I left my questions on the printer. So I'm like, do I get it? Do I just be like, let's wing it?
I go get it. I can vamp while you're gone. How you doing?
It's right here. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
You know what? I meant to say too. I love your tag, your handle.
Oh, thank you.
It's like when I read it, I was like, so much to be said here.
Truly, it's so funny because I started a podcast that was originally called Nobody Comes Here to Hide, which I still love and it still applies, but that felt like a sentence, and I felt like most of what I'm doing is just a question that I'm inviting other people into. So what happens in between just like keeps working. Like every single time I have a new idea, I'm like, oh, it still actually fits like under this.
I love it because as soon as I was reading it, I thought about life. I thought about that journey, what happens in between, because I believe in the idea that we come from source to return to source. So what happens in between? That's what I got as I was writing it out earlier. I was like, yes, what happened? So, yeah.
I love this validation.
So that's what that was. Okay, so I think I'm ready to go. I did what I need to do. That's it. Okay. So, Athena, if you can just introduce yourself to us, let us know who you are or whatever.
Sure. I'm Athena. Background on me, I come from a military family, and so I was constantly moving, and from a very young age I actually got very well acquainted with like change is constant, chaos, like the chaos that comes from change. And most recently I would say I'm trying to integrate sort of some of my gifts into helping other people interact with chaos, and find like inner stability. And I host a podcast called What Happens in Between. What else about me? I'm a creator.
Oh, I'm so excited. I got to check out this podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great if I say so myself.
As you should. Hello. That's why you continue to do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So after the introduction, I have a morning, sis. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Okay, so I kind of sort of have two questions for you because one I thought was just like, anywho, so let me ask the first question. What is the word that comes to you when you hear the word freedom?
Movement.
Ooh.
Movement is the word, and the vision is like trees.
Oh. I love that. I've been paying more attention to like when I like to go to the park. So I've been paying attention to just like how easeful the wind just blows through trees. Like there's no resistance. It's just no beats. No beats.
Yeah. But they're still like rooted in themselves, you know?
Even deeper.
Tree.
Yeah. Funny story. I used to be scared of trees, but here we are. For a while. So do you want to hear it or
please?
Okay. Yeah. So I was just whatever. I have like these weird things, and it probably is because do you know that movie where the tree talks? I forgot
Which
what it's
one?
called. It's like, oh sorry, it's not a tree, it's a plant.
Okay.
It's old. It's
Mm,
like really, really old. I was like really,
okay,
really
okay.
little. Okay. So I don't know the name of the movie, but the tree, the plant talks. So I remember this when I was younger. So I really like going to the park just to like walk, just to sit. And so like I noticed that when I'm walking near a tree, like I'm so scared a tree is going to talk to me. Like,
Really?
yeah, and like even when I go like close to it, like to like touch it, like I just freak, like I'm so scared that like a tree is going to talk to me. And I think that it really does go, sorry, the way I got my phone set up right now. And I think it's like compiled with a couple of things. I come from a family who some people have been diagnosed with like schizophrenia. And first of all, I have a lot of thoughts about that, but we gonna pin that. So you know what? So like things like that, like the idea that something can talk to me freaks me out because like I believe is very possible. One, right? But like once it opens up, you know, people, outside people, the effect it can have. And right. And you know, when you're young, I feel like, at least for me, when you're young, you just know the power that people have. And not like real power, but like, you know what I mean?
I know, yeah, I
Not
know
true
exactly
power,
what you
but you
mean.
know, so like
I know
I used
exactly
to
what you
always have to
mean.
feel like I had to run from what's possible in that sense. And so like for a while
Hmm.
I was like just scared to go near trees to be close to them. I would freak out like, yo, they're gonna talk to me. I can't be here. I feel the same way about cats, but not anymore. I used to.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. I have like, oh, go ahead.
No. But there's just something with those two things, and like
Uh-huh.
what's interesting is that someone like another spiritual guide told me that I actually can work with branches and read branches. They was like, you should try. I'm pretty sure you can read branches. Like, try it out. And but at the time I was scared. So like recently this summer, I started getting close
Hmm.
to the trees. I started stopping, putting my hand on them, talking like the journey,
Wow.
the journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I'm in nature, it feels more like I want to merge with it. Like, there have been times when I was in a botanical garden and there was like this one plant. I remember it. I don't remember what its scientific name is, but it's like kind of a wavy plant with red tips.
Ooh.
And I just remember being so attracted to this plant that I had to like put it inside of me. Like I was like, I need to actually consume this and we become each other.
Mm.
So I have a very different relationship with the trees and nature where I'm like, how do I become you?
More,
Please let me
I
in.
get it. Yes. And just recently I started talking about it with people, and like everybody I've told it to, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like I get what you're saying. But they've
Mhm.
been also trying to help me like find ways to like, all right, even if it talks to you, like, let's do this. And I'm here for the shits. Like I want all the magic. I want to sample it all. I want to know what it looks like, what it do. So but
Mhm.
yeah, I thought it was like so interesting, like how truly like scared I am. Like I was so intrigued by it, even like cats too.
Mhm.
Out of all animals, so like interesting. But and I still feel
I
that way.
love this.
I I'm sure like now I guess now I'm more okay if it was to happen, and I think that that's what I've come
Mhm.
to peace with. Like I don't need to run from it. If that is the case, but it's funny as hell. I used to talk to my therapist about it too. I'm sure she's like, hopefully she writes a book and I'm in it. Because if not, I'll resend it. Actually, I feel like I had great stories.
That's
Like, why am I not
hilarious.
in your book? No, anyway. All right. So I asked one question. The other question, did I put it here? Okay. So if a genie grants you three wishes, but none of them can directly benefit you, what would those wishes be?
Mm. Um, I might have to keep one of them a secret.
Okay. Okay. Fair.
um, three wishes. I think that I would wish for everyone to experience the abundance of a squash. Let me explain this. So I remember my former roommate used to work at a farmer's market. And so there were times when she would just bring in like buckets of squash. And I remember like cutting into one and I was like, oh, how many of these seeds makes one squash? And she was like, mm-mm, one seed makes a vine that can like create 30 or so squash per season, something like this, right? And in that moment, I felt like something inside of me sort of like flipped, where I was like, oh my gosh, scarcity, how would I phrase this? Scarcity is true, but not real. Like it's something that we have created because the idea that some folks don't have food, for instance, like it's not because there's not enough food. It's because we have built infrastructure that does not prioritize uh, distributing food like evenly, So I think so that would be my one wish. One of my wishes is that everyone gets to experience that abundance that is squashed, that is in most of nature. You know what I mean? And in like a physical, financial, spiritual, like in all the ways, material as well. The second wish is I wish that people had a stronger connection to their body. I would wish that people have the same. My body has always been very communicative, like very, very clear about this is no longer for us. Specifically with partners, where it just become like, whoa, actually, no, this won't work anymore. And so I wish that everyone had access to that, because I know not everyone has like, not everyone's body is as aggressive, I'd say, as mine is in communicating what it needs, even though it's always communicating. But so that would be my second wish. And the third one, I'm going to have to keep to myself, unfortunately.
Yeah. And the second one about the body, and another side of that too, I remember, so I grew up with a lot happening. It was just a lot happening. And I grew up in the foster care system. And I remember a time of my life where I did not cry. Mind you, I'm a crier. I have always, like, even when I was younger, everybody said, yeah, cry, baby. You cry for everything. Somebody can talk to you and you crying. That's fine. I'm crying because all this energy is not necessary. And what I'm feeling in my body compared to what you saying just ain't adding up. So whatever. But like, I got to a point, I remember I didn't cry for about 6 years. And the only reason why I know this, because when I did cry, I was so shocked that that I could cry. And like, maybe I teared up, but from somebody that used to cry all the time to not crying, then to crying again, like I learned very young, like that disconnect, and even like not being able to remember things and all those things like that. Like I eventually lost connection with my body. Like I couldn't, and on another, and I ended up like, I mentioned to you like the depression I went through, and the fact that on the other side of that, I was able to start feeling again. But that's like, that reminds me all of those times I wasn't really connected to my body. Like I was in my mind, yeah, I can logically think this through, but I didn't know what was happening in here. So I definitely do not, that's one of the things I'm always writing that I'm grateful for, to be home in my body, because like, I know what it feels like. I know what I was, goosebumps. I know what I was missing out on when I wasn't there, like,
yeah.
So you get it. But yeah. So two, yes. I wish the same for all of us. I have definitely witnessed that difference for myself. But yeah, okay, so let's get into it. So when we're talking about co-creating with spirit, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, co-creating with spirit. I think that for a long time in my life, I felt like I was the immovable object and the unstoppable force. And that got me very far in life, because I just was like, I'm simply going to manifest everything by will. And at the time, I wasn't using the language of manifestation or anything like this, but just if I wanted something, I was certain that I would get it via hard work and charisma and like all this kind of stuff, right? But recently, what I've come to understand is that I can make anything happen, but it's going to be harder, it's going to be longer often than it needs to be per se. And so for me, co-creation with spirit is really about understanding the contract, understanding what is my work and what I am able to surrender and let come to me.
And so when you're talking about your work, are you talking, is that like from a soul level kind of thing? Like,
It's from a soul level, but it also everything distills down to actions for me.
mm-hmm.
So I do mean that in terms of understanding hmm, understanding what is my relationship to spirit and what I need to do to maintain that. But it also means, from like a business perspective, understanding that I am translating downloads, but my work is not necessarily to market those downloads. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's in all levels of just knowing like, okay, this is my place. This is something that I can call in. Thank you.
Right. So because what I'm assuming, I guess, and like you can correct me clearly, is that like in every aspect of it, right? So like I say yes, like spirit gives me this idea and I say yes to it, right? Like I'm going to follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And like once I follow through on parts, imagine like there's a frustration. The person I ask that maybe can help me with this project says no. But I trust that even though they said no, the right person is gonna come. So I don't need to worry about all of that. Oh my God, they said no. Like that's not my business. I know that I probably need support in this, and I just trust that spirit will provide it. Or
absolutely.
Whatever. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Because that's like a constant. Do you feel like so I guess, so what is your life like in that, like, and living that way, right? Because I mean, I can assume things. So that's a constant checking in. That's an awareness that needs to surrender, like tons of things. So what is your life like going this way?
So this is a pretty recent discovery for me. We're talking like end of 2021, like maybe just about a year that I'm really actively digging into this. An example is earlier this year in January or so. In December of 2021, I decided that I was going to get a job, like a 9 to 5 type of job. And then because it's December and, holiday seasons, I was like, I'm not really going to start applying until later. So mid-January or so, I start applying, and very quickly I get like 3 interviews. 2 of them, I go all the way to the final interview. And so I'm like building a whole world around like, oh yeah, I'm going to work at this company and I'm going to move here and it's going to be blah, blah, whatever. And then I heard from my second choice that I didn't get the job. And I was like, that's fine because I'm here with my first choice, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next day I heard that I didn't get the job for my first choice either. And I remember like praying and tapping about it and just being like, wow, I didn't get this. It's disappointing, but I also recognize that that means something better's on its way. Like if you didn't want me to have this, then like that I already thought was like the bee's knees, like, holy crap, what's coming next? And then by truly like a way that I could have never imagined, someone who I follow on Instagram, I got on her email list like a couple months ago. At that time, right? Like it had been a couple months and I don't really actually read a lot of the emails that I get from people because it's mostly just promoting stuff. But I just decided to click on this email, and then I got on this other lady's list. And then 2 weeks later, she's like, I'm hiring. And every time an entrepreneur is hiring, not every time, but very often when someone's hiring, it's about like marketing or doing their social media. So I tried to delete the email, couldn't delete the email, accidentally clicked into it. And I saw that it was a coaching job, actually. Smash cut to, now I have this coaching job, which is full-time for her, is considered 28 hours a week instead of 40. Come on. Like, so that's an example of, I did my part, which is showing up. I even actually kind of messed up my part because I tried to delete an email that I was clearly meant to read. Yeah. But like I did my part of showing up and believing and like paying sort of with faith that because I didn't get the one that for weeks I had been interviewing for, it meant that something better was coming. And then very swiftly thereafter, I got what was an even better fit job-wise. that's what co-creation with spirit like can look like.
Yeah.
That being said, that was, I'm giving you my best story around that, you know, like where I was the most like tapped in. But I recently have been going through another transformation that is way harder and has taken way longer because I'm not necessarily doing my part of the contract, you know? So I just wanted to state that clearly, that I'm giving you the best story because it's the easiest example, but it's not always so like,
Right.
I'm not always all the way there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know, one thing I say to myself is like, everything's a practice to me, right? And I probably say this because one, it makes me feel way more comfortable. It takes away a lot of pressure from me so that I can just be, right? I'm not trying to get anything perfect. I'm literally doing the best I can, usually in each moment. It's questionable sometimes. So it's like, I create circumstances that are unnecessary. But yeah, but I really resonate with your story because even like yesterday, what was I trying to do? I think I was about to buy something and it wouldn't go through. And like when stuff like that happens, I always know that something's up. It's either like they like don't buy from this person, or the amount that you think it is, it ain't. Like it's always like something that basically is a pause. Like you need to pay attention here. So when you were talking about the deleting, I was like, yes, I experience that so often. Whether it's deleting something, trying to purchase something, it's like spirit will be like, girl, please pause. You're moving fast. Let's see. Sometimes it's nothing. A lot of times it's something. So I'm just like, all right, they
Yeah.
me something. And so yeah, I really resonate with that. Like that's how we all day I be talking to spirit, because it'd be like little things like that that I'm not little, nothing's little. I'm working on that too, where I just feel like nothing's little. It all plays a part to the big picture, and so it matters. But yeah, wait. So something else you mentioned was tapping.
Yeah, I tap every day, especially if I'm in crisis, so to speak.
Do you
It's
do that?
like,
Okay. No.
it's part of my morning. So I have like I'm a very systems oriented person. I'm a Capricorn rising, Virgo sun. Like I know how to support myself basically. So I always have in place like a routine that helps me to center who I'm trying to be. And so for me, a huge part of when I'm in a state of things are not clear, I feel very unstable, all that kind of stuff, what really helps me the most is centering the beliefs that I want to choose. So tapping is something that I do every day, especially when I'm in crisis. But I also do it kind of like with a little bit less, I don't want to say less intention, but like a little bit less pressure around it, several times a week if I'm like in a good space, quote unquote.
Because I know, because you mentioned that you coach as well, right? So do you use that with that technique as part of the tools of your coaching? Because I know EFT is like,
I don't at this time. I am new to it and I don't even know if I'm, not to say if I'm doing it right. I'm obviously doing it right for me, but I don't know if I should have more knowledge around like what each point does before I start sharing with other people. But I have definitely like recorded myself tapping and then showed it to myself and been like, oh yeah, let me speak over me, Athena. Like,
Because clearly I know that everybody had their process from like doing it for myself, and if I share it, when I share it, right? Because I don't believe that everything we do needs to be monetized or add to being monetized in some kind of way. I just know like we also collect hella toolkits. Like I'm a person, I probably try anything I know about, I probably try. Like I'm the person who have tried the Akashic records, right? I've taken courses for EFT tapping, like, you know, for EFT, meditation. Like I take all these courses. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do these things or I want to do these things, but I'll probably recommend it to someone just because of that experience, right? Like, oh, you know what? I did something that you might like. So I'm just
Hmm.
out here like literally line threeing it for everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I feel that. I feel that. Yeah, double three over here. Yes.
because that's what now I'm thinking. I was like, yeah, girl, you just be doing things to say, oh, I tried that. You should try it too.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
Akashic
I
records
will
remind me of
buy.
meditation.
Yeah, I've actually
Mm-hmm.
never tried it. I've heard of it, but I feel very sensitive about who I let into my sort of spiritual, psychological
Mm-hmm.
space. So there are things that I want to try and that I want to learn from other people, but I'm waiting for a guide
Guide. Mm-hmm.
who resonates.
I feel that. I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I know. So
Yeah.
it's been a journey. So when we were talking about like procreating and just like even how you explain the way it's been showing, some ways it's been showing up for you. How are you with
Mhm.
surrender? Because I feel like a lot of this might require a letting go, like of some
Mhm.
expectations, things.
Mhm. One of my morning minders, which is a morning reminder, but I like alliteration. One of my morning minders is the how is taken care of. Um, some people say like the how is not
Mm,
my business, which I like, but sometimes I'll try to keep like negative out of like my affirmations just in case. I studied a little bit of neuroscience, and so I'm still not certain. The research is still not certain that our brains like process negatives in the grand scheme of like
mm,
sentences. So instead of saying I'm not poor, like the brain might just skip the not and go
right.
straight to.
Mm,
Um, but again, research is still happening there. Anyhow, so the how is taken care of. I have to really let go of understanding how something is going to come to be because when I think of some of the most delightful experiences I've had, I could not make it up. I could not have imagined that. And so that's something that's really hard. Um, Especially with I'm a manifesting generator, so I'm really powerful. I'm very like there's so much energy moving through me and I have literally spoken things into existence. I would say my whole family is very strong. My dad's a manifester, my mom is a generator, but her throat is defined, it's just not connected.
mm,
Um,
mm,
oh, and let me tell you something like the way that I've seen my parents and myself and my sister speak things into being, I just know how powerful we are. And so I think sometimes with the surrender, it's really hard to wait. It's patience.
mm.
I'm talking about patience. Like it's sometimes really hard to wait. And it's also hard when I feel like, especially because I'm so systems oriented, I feel like, well, I know I can get through it like this, but then I feel all that frustration and then it's hard or there's all these obstacles. And I'm like, but this is a way I can see, and it's the way that makes me feel comfortable. So yeah, I would say my relationship to surrender is always in progress,
Yeah.
just
Oh my God.
always in progress.
Like as I'm hearing you talk, like I'm just like internally, trust me, I'm a hyper person. So honestly, it wants to burst out so bad. Uh, and it takes a lot for me to be sitting here a lot of time when people are talking, because like I get all this
Mhm.
excitement and like oh my God, like I resonate, I feel it. Your life sounds so fun, and I say fun in a sense that like I think that on my journey, I've become so okay with the fact that like life is life, it okay, and this shit is fun if you let go, right? I've been a person who
Mhm.
needs control over everything, right? So I was on that spectrum for a long time. Then I got on the other side where I'm just like, F it, YOLO everything. And then I'm in the middle now where it's just like, oh, everything is gonna be good. Like I like what you said
Mhm.
earlier about the how is already taken. How do you say it? The how is already taken care of.
Yeah,
I
the
need to
house
write
taken
that
care of,
down.
and
I'm
that's
just
like
write
that goes back to the co-creation. Like that goes back to knowing my part. So if my part is just understanding and being clear on what I desire, then the how is taken care of. The how is not like my work. You know, my
right.
work is over here showing up for what I want and being clear on what I want.
Yeah. Showing up for what I want and being clear on what I want. Yeah. I like really like resonate with that. The how it's taken care of. Because one of the things I started saying is there's already a solution. Like soon
Ah,
as a whole bunch of stuff start happening and I start almost panicking, I'm like, wait. There's already an answer here. Like, do we see the answer? And if not, it's coming, right? Like, especially if I feel like I've already done everything I can, and this is like I'm still just concerned. I'm just like, whoa, but the answer is there's already a solution. Nate. Like, chill out.
wow. I love that. That makes me feel calm. Like that literally calmed
Oh
my
yeah,
body down.
and that's what it's been doing for me because I could be a worrier. One thing I'm like really grateful for is like the calmness now of my nervous system because that was like
Mm.
one of my issues. It was getting activated very easily. So I was constantly like spending more time with my breath trying to like, we're good, you're safe, babe. Because I got to do a lot of self talk. But what about for you?
Yeah.
Like when you have like, I imagine we all stress at some point or another if you consider it stress. How do you
Mhm.
handle like stress or overwhelm if that's something you experience in the process?
Yeah. I mean, I certainly experience um, stress. I think that for me, what is really helpful is, like I said, centering the beliefs that I want to choose. So being very clear on, like, I'm choosing to believe that the how is taken care of. I'm choosing to believe that everything that is happening is just leveling me up for uh, what it is that I said that I want. I choose to believe that because I didn't get X job, it means something better is coming. Really centering that belief is really helpful. And then from a more physical standpoint, I I need to like soothe the body.
Mm.
And one thing that really helps me is just being outside. Like there have been times when I'm so angry, and this was when I lived in my previous space. But like I used to get so angry, and it was like really the middle of COVID, and so all of this energy was just swishing around, like right next to my bed, which is also my office, which was also et cetera, all this stuff. And I just remember just the way that I would wake up and immediately like rev myself up into anger. And so I was like, oh, I have to find a space to do anger that isn't my bed because I need to go to sleep at night. I have to find a space to just process this emotion that can be its own space. And so going outside, what has actually tended to happen now, like 2 or so years later, is when I'm really angry and I step outside, almost immediately my mind is like blank. So if I'm like worried, if I'm building a story, and girl, I love to invent. I love to invent a story. I will build a world around my hurt. But if I'm hearing like a story and I don't necessarily want to be engaging with it anymore, I will step outside and within a few seconds, my mind is just blank. And that's something that really helps me when I am inventing, um, what I call inventing. And, but I also hold space for like the emotions. I think that I'm about to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but
We're chilling.
great. Um, Something that I've been trying to change is this. People love to say higher self, like let your higher self lead, let et cetera, higher self. And I feel that, but for me, I think that is a little bit too hierarchical, um, especially given my experiences in life. I'm trying to remove hierarchy from my spiritual practice. And so, what I like to use instead is integrated self, because some of the wounds that I have, like the deepest wounds, are actually about like, I hope this isn't ableist language, but being in spaces where people ask me to amputate pieces of myself in order to survive. And so for me, what is always happening is the more that I'm able to accept everything that's coming, the person in me who likes to throw temper tantrums, the person who's kind of vengeful, the person who's petty, as well as the person who is like wholly compassionate, like they all get to live and exist in me at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Who is driving is a different question, right? Like, not everybody is allowed to touch the wheel, but we're all allowed to inhabit this body. And so Why did I bring that up? Oh, yes. When I am overwhelmed, when I am stressed, when I am angry, I hold space for that too. Like I'm not immediately trying to stop that from happening. I just am trying to stop it from becoming like from rooting, basically.
Mm, yeah. So it's like trying to stop it from coming. I don't want to. When you say rooted, because you just used the word rooted, right? Are you talking about like the
Mm-hmm.
dominant energy? I'm thinking about
Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm basically saying like I want to stop it from. I want to feel the feelings, but I don't want to invent the world around the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Yeah.
I mean.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
get it. I feel that. I feel all of that because I feel like even about the hierarchy. So one of the things, a lot of worlds I've been a part of. I tell people I lived so many lives in this lifetime. And a
Me
lot of
too.
the worlds, yeah, so a lot of the worlds I've been a part of, I don't necessarily resonate with. So I actually have issues with this whole power thing, like even at work, jobs. Like I know that is necessary to some extent, but I think that sometimes it just goes, it's just too much for me. Like I'm more of, as people would like to say, oh, you're more like a peer kind of person. I'm like, call it what you want, but I just don't see myself above anyone. Like I just feel like we got different magic, different things that you know that I don't know. Like, I'm a resource. That does not mean I
Mm-hmm.
know everything, I have all the answers, or I'm above you. But at the same time, I understand that there needs to be boundaries because of the relationship. But I like to, follow my own kind of moral compass as opposed to the world. And so, like, I love that you mentioned the higher self because that's also like terms that I'm trying to walk away from because they were helpful. Don't get me wrong for when I needed them, but
Yeah.
I feel like you like it's all me. Like I say that all the time. Like every version of me that I've have expressed is still in here. Now it may be dormant, okay, but she can get activated. So and that's something like I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly reminding even myself when I get out of character, right? Like if somebody does, like I end up yelling a screaming match with someone. I'm just like sometimes I gotta catch myself like, what the fuck was that? Like, what am I
Mm-hmm.
even doing? But
Mm-hmm.
that person is still not person. That energy is still in me. It's gonna be there.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah.
learn that and experience that for me to give myself more grace because it's like you said, like it's all a part of me. It all deserves to there's space for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna cut that part of myself off. Like there's a reason why that energy exists for me, and it comes out when it needs to. Trust that. So yeah,
Right.
thank
Right.
you. Yes, you say so much delicious things, but luckily we're gonna have a recording so I can come and jot. Like, cause I'm like, nah, I gotta hear this podcast. I'm so intrigued
Thank
by just the
you.
way you journey through life. I feel like a lot of time, like I know that we all have different perspectives, but I resonate a lot with what you're saying, and even like I think a part of me too is like interested in your practicing or working on your patience because of that strategy to respond. So when you learned about your type and your strategy, can I like what was that
Mm-hmm.
like? Did anything come up for you?
Oh, I'm gonna say this, and I mean this with no disrespect, right? But I was so grateful to not be a projector. Because truly, I think y'all are great. No, I think y'all are great. For me personally, the way that I am in this lifetime, patience is not the lesson that I feel like I could have, like, that's too much of a lesson in patience for where I am.
It's real.
I hope that makes sense because I just like, I really like, I think that I would be fighting so hard. And especially if my parents, who are, as I said, a manifestor and a generator, like if I was a projector raised by them, like I think it would take me years, decades possibly to like unravel all of that. Um, Anyways, that was literally the first thing that came to mind when I saw my chart. The very first thing was, oh, thank God.
Oh my! First of all, I don't know if you ever heard one of my. I talk about manifestors energy.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
scare me. Not really scare, but
Yeah.
they yeah okay. You know what I mean? Like they're
No,
so
it's
like my ballsy.
I'm not even going to deny, like, I don't think it makes me a better person. Like, I think that there's a lot of, I would say, like, aggressive actions that are, uh, wait, I'm sorry. Where am I going with this sentence? Let me really sit down and think about that for a second. I know in a lot of ways, oh yeah, I know there are ways that I've caused harm based off of how my design is and in like the way that I've interacted with people who have different designs. And that is unfortunate. And I seek to stop doing that. But again, like we just said, like that is something that happened. And so I also recognize that like the more that I sit into my design, the more repellent I'm becoming for certain people. And the more also that I'm kind of like, oh, I have a certain judgment on this kind of thing that I don't need to subject them to. I can actually just avoid this because not everyone needs to hear my judgment. That's literally, that's it. Yeah. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry. Did you ask me a question?
I was asking you what were your first thoughts. Your first thoughts was like, thankfully, I'm not a projector. Yeah. I don't know.
Or a reflector. I feel like reflectors, like, I think that they actually have like a really cool journey. And again, I don't have the patience to embody that. And I knew I don't have to, luckily.
Right. But it's just so many levels to all of this. Because even like because it's one thing I feel like me reviewing my chart all the time and reviewing my friend's chart. But now like that I'm actually like publicly talking about it like on YouTube, it's such a different thing because now I'm just like really like, I want to understand this. And like, I talk about the auras just from my energetic lens. Not so like, yeah, I talk about what I read, but also my experience with the actual energies, like manifesting generators. When I actually sat down and thought about it, as much as like I get that fun, let's go, that bubbly energy, that warmth, I also get that grr. So I'm just like, and I had to sit with that. And then like realizing I had like a friend from law school. She was also on one of the Truth Talks. We found out later, like after the conversation, that she's a manifester. But I used to always view her energy as different. I used to always say this, like, there's different. She feel like very like closed off. Like she hold her cards close to her chest. Like kind of like not very discreet. Like they there but not really there. Like they're not giving you too much. You're not entering too much. And as someone who's like very bubbly and I'm a Leo sun, moon, a Gemini rising, like I'm like other people energy like that sometimes is weird. It's like I don't know what to do with that. Do you want to be my friend? Do you not want to be my friend? Like, and then another manifestor was the same way, but they were a Leo sun, and I was just like, but so you got that Leo energy too, where it's like I'm in charge. I know it's best. Like it was just my experiences with manifestors when I realized they were manifestors. When I tell you the relief I had learning that they were manifestors and I wasn't tripping. I was like, all right. Yeah, human design has helped me with people because I was talking to another projector on IG, and we were like talking about like how much our lives have changed knowing that we got to wait for the invitation.
Absolutely. And I think that it's helped me so much. I really see human design as a tool for compassion. Because when I first started learning about it, it was not for business purposes. I just wanted to understand myself, and I wanted to understand why certain relationships kept hurting me in the exact same way. And so once I came to an understanding, well, I can give like an example, I guess, if that's okay. I have a defined G. And I had a friend who has an open G. And so the more that I learn about like what this open G is like, I came to realize that what is true, like what they're saying to me is true right then. And and like potentially no other time, right? That's not to say that it won't be true, later, or that it won't stay true consistently, but to know just, oh, when you say something, you can only promise me, so to speak, truth in the moment that you're saying it. Whereas as a defined G, I feel, I go in and out with this, but I feel sometimes so intentional and so deliberate about like what I've said, how I said it, because for me, I'm staking my whole identity on this. You know what I'm saying? And so to understand like, oh, well, for her whole identity isn't wrapped up in this. It's just true right now, versus I try to hold on to something privately. Like I don't put something out publicly until I feel like I could sit with this for at least like 90 days. Just you know what I'm saying? Like it just feels, that's just how it feels. And so now I have so much more grace for like, oh, you're not breaking a promise to me. You're moving. You're just like evolving at a different pace than me. Or at least there's like less weight to like, basically it's just permanence. I think I've explained it.
Oh my God. No, so first of all, I feel seen by you. Like literally my eyes are like, like I feel the water. Cause like so I have an open G center. I only have one, defined, gate 25 is the only thing that's defined in that whole thing. That's what I'm like, I've just like recently I've also like been being mindful of relationships around me, because I'm like, I want to be my free self and y'all want me to be something that I'm just not, and it doesn't feel good anymore. And the older I'm getting, the more I just don't care. So I'm just like, something gotta go, because y'all clouding this energy field, and this girl just want to be free, happy, and just love everybody as much as I can, right? Because I'm also mindful of like what I'm around, because I work from home. I spend all my time, like I do a lot of things alone. So I really do get to control what I'm around. But one thing I started recently saying is that my truth is only true in a moment. So the fact that you literally are using those words, that's not something I read anywhere. You know what I mean? Like that was just something I intuitively knew. And I had to, not had to, but it helped me to communicate with other people, because I think now a lot of people in my life just get it, where I'm just like, I'm everything and yet nothing at all. I can only speak in a moment. Like I try, like I'm not trying to deliberately like fake something out or confuse people, but it's just my truth, And so like the fact that you're using those words is like, I feel hugged, because like that's literally what I was saying. Like,
yeah. And that's what I mean with like, it's helped me to just have different expectations, to understand like what is fair, quote unquote, to expect from any given person, given like how they are literally designed to be. So I'm not going to ask you I'm not going to like, if you say that you like pizza today, I'm not going to in 3 months be like, you don't like pizza anymore? How could you? You know what I'm saying? But for myself, I would hold a little bit more. I have the space, obviously, for myself, to be like, wow, you really don't like pizza anymore? Are we sure about this? Is this something that you want to like, are you ready to go public about this?
But I stopped going public about stuff because I started realizing I can't keep up. So now everything, True Talk, the YouTube, listen, I stream live, right? I can say that today, right? I can say, oh, I'm a YouTuber, right? If I want to play that role today. But I don't know about next week. I don't know yet. I might be, I don't know. And there's only so much I can do in my 24 hours. Granted, I also need to rest more, if I'm being honest, but that's a whole other story. But yes, OMG, this is also delicious. I feel like you're a whole new world that I'm just like, oh, I want to be in your world now. It sounds so
thank you.
fun and fluid. There's space there. I think that, clearly I think a lot of us can say we're grounded in a lot of different truths, but I feel like there should also be place for some change, some shifts for me to, and I think the more I get to know myself, the more I take off the pressure from everyone else. And I also be calling myself out like, girl, you projecting on these people. And I'd be like, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I have a question for you, because I wanted to ask you, even when we throughout this whole conversation, because a lot of things you're talking about require self-awareness. Can you tell me about your journey?
Let me tell you something. I truly, an hour before this, was talking. I'm the same way. I talk everything through. I think it's just how I process information best. And I was just talking about like what I need in relationships and like this particular wound that I have, etc. And it all came back to self-awareness. I don't know if it's conditioning or if it's innate, but from a very young age, I have been incredibly self-aware, always. And again, it could be like being in a military family, so moving around a lot, having like I get to see myself, or I got to see myself in all these different environments. And I could go, this is what's consistent, or this is what changed. And I do think that also in having to move all the time and like learning new social hierarchies, like as a kid and new cultures, I really had a lot of time to like sit, or at least I gave myself the time to sit and just observe and just be like, oh, no. Yes, I like, no, get this away. And so I think that self-awareness is just a tool that I have been really lucky to just have access to since like it's like one of my first memories, basically. That being said, I find it incredibly hard to teach self-awareness. Again, because I've just had it for so long that I'm like, you really don't see, like, how are you not seeing this? How are you seeing the like contradiction over here? Or like, how are you not seeing that you always make this choice when you're in fear mode? And so, I don't know, like my relationship to self-awareness is just really strong. I would say it's the same as my relationship to my body, where it's just, I've always felt very much like, oh, this is what we're doing right now. It might take me a while, it might take me some time to notice like, oh, I'm in a character that I don't want to be in right now, or I'm like taking actions that I do not condone. So let's walk that back. But yeah, self-awareness is really like, it's a love language for me.
Yeah. But well, what I find so interesting, and this is why I love Truth Talks, because like one of the things I believe is like we're all an example of what's possible, right? We're all a reflection of source, right? Being expressed. And not all of us, this is something I say so often, it's like not all of us are here to do the same things, to express the same things, to be passionate about the same things. And like for you, like you always had this self-awareness, right? The self-awareness in you, to the point where like that's not something that you probably in this lifetime you're like probably always consciously thinking about, in the sense that you got to work on it, because it's something that just is. And so like for me, that is how I feel like my so I'm a splenic projector, and I always felt like I had a knowing, like I just knew stuff, I could read energy, I like it's just always been a thing. It's never. And so what I think is so funny is that I call myself now an energy channeler, and I'm just like, that is not something I can teach. And I think it's so funny that I can't teach it, but spirit is showing me through human design how I can teach it. It's like helping people come back to their bodies, because like, but me, I've always, and I even tell my mentor and my spiritual guide that like I was like, it's always been like, I don't know a time when I wasn't this way. I just always knew things. So
yeah, I feel that way. I feel that way about a lot of things, where I made a user manual. Like I have it's this little like red notebook, and it says user manual, and I've had it for years, where I would just like write down these observations. And that's actually like, it developed into a system, like a packet, where I'm like, oh, when I'm depressed, here's like my like several tools or several actions that I can do when I'm depressed. Oh, I'm being indecisive. Here are the questions that help move me out of indecision. I also have it for like snacks that I like,
Wait,
like snacks that make me feel better.
What made you create that? First of all, this is like, that's amazing. Like, how did you come up with that idea? Or did it just come to you?
Well, I think the way that it crystallized the most is through my friend Ananya, through Esther Perel, Dr. Esther Perel. You know this woman?
No, I don't think so.
She has a podcast. She's a relationship therapist.
Okay.
And she has this podcast where people were willing to have their counseling sessions recorded, and then she would we'd hear it, and then she'd kind of talk us through like the dynamics of that, which is fascinating to me. So one of the things that Esther Perel said, and I just want to shout out again Ananya because she was the connector. So thank you, Ananya. One of the things she mentioned was like having like a sexual user manual where you know what you like, and you can like, I don't think she was being very literal about it, but I was very literal about it, where she's like, you can write out like what you like and then hand this to your partner and then like chill. You know what I'm saying? And like now everybody knows what to do, more or less. So I saw that and I was like, oh, I feel like I do that in my journals, but about like everything. And then I was like, oh, well, why don't I just put them all together instead of like flipping through journals from 2015 and being like, man, like where did I put this thing that I've already, like, this is a lesson I've definitely learned before. How did I get out of it the last time? Wow. So that was where the idea came from.
So first of all, I love that idea. And I always think like, what'd you do that? I'm like, girl, you already know, girl, we have like 20 notebooks. We start a project and we don't follow through. Like even right now, I'm trying to so I've done like the 60 days of gratitude type journals and I had so much fun. But when I try to do it again, it doesn't, the 120. When I do it now, I can't do it. Like I don't stick with it. So it'd be a little sucky. But I still like journal and do my gratitude out loud, but like I can't, I'm not being... It's not happening. So interesting. I had a question for you and then I lost it because I was talking. Damn it.
That's okay. It'll come back if it wants to.
But I love that. It's just so many things you're touching on. It really reflects. All right, let's see what I have here. Because we already kind of talked about some like tools you have, some beliefs you have, and practices. Ooh. I know you have tapping as a practice. Do you have other practices that like help you stay grounded so that you can,
I would say praying. And my version of praying is a little bit more in line with like indigenous like Orinali like Igbo sort of practices where I'm like standing in front of a mirror with like the candle lit and I'm sort of like presenting to my ancestors or whoever, like my divine team. I group them all together into my divine team. But yeah, I think it's my relationship to, pardon me, my dog is here. I can't pet you right now. I'm busy. Okay, he's gone. Where was I? Oh yes, my relationship to spirit is one of the things that grounds me the most because I really feel the more that I learn about myself, the more that I'm like, oh man, I'm built different. And I think a lot of us, I think everyone is, it's like, it's not binary, right? It's like all these little dials and like, you might have like a 7 in propensity for spirituality where someone else might have a 2, you know what I'm saying? Like but we all have access to every dial, but I have felt so much like, just so different for so long. And there's like certain things that I'm like, I feel like this is normal. Like, I feel like everyone else is able to do this, but for whatever reason, like I don't have access to that or like to the emotional continence that lets me get to that. And so my relationship to spirit and just being like, hey, I'm sad. Can you help? Or like, I don't understand the way. Can you like give me something clear that I can work with here? it's been very helpful. And also just remembering like, Akwaeke Emezi has said this really beautifully, but like sometimes when you're like a spirit touched person or like a vessel, like a direct vessel for spirit, there's an insulation that is required, so that you can do your work, but it can feel like isolation. And I remember reading that and just bawling, like crying. I was like, I was living in like a lighthouse at the time, like literally at the top of like in this little secluded area. No one else was around. And I'm just like, oh, this is insulation, not isolation. Like I was like, truly, yeah.
But even the idea of you being in the lighthouse, I don't know why. I'm thinking of like, Rise 6, like, for whatever reason. Like even the idea of you being in a lighthouse.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the best tools. And then also this user manual as well. Because it is just like, it's a reminder that I've survived. Like it's a reminder that I've been through something, and it's not always that I'm like updating it as much as I'm just reading and being like, oh my God, I did go through this whole thing. Oh, and it did like resolve itself in a way that I could have never imagined. So I think really a lot for me is just reminders, like just reminders.
And that is so beautiful, as I believe like I kind of walk away trying to get away from the healing term and more of a remembrance. But that's what it is. It's like this constant reminder, like this too shall pass is one of my favorite things. This too shall pass, right? Yeah, damn, it's so interesting that I keep thinking about stuff and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say that, and then I don't. And I have a pen and paper here. Why am I not taking notes? Like, you know what I mean? Like jotting down my ideas. If this is the second time it just happened. Work in progress. But that's what I was gonna say. That it's so interesting. Like a lot of things you say is just touching my heart, because I feel like these are the conversations I be having with my friends, and this is the lens. Like I can't wait till they see this replay, because like, I know a lot of them gonna be like, "Yo, you be talking about that." I'm like, I know, and I feel like I'm the only person, and it's just like but I also know too that the more I share like my perspective, I'm gonna find my people, because what you're talking about for the Tao. So I always talk about we're all on the spectrum, right? So I stay talking about my spectrum. Love talking about spectrum. So I'm like, we're all on a spectrum. So even like you could talk about anything, and I would be like, that energy is in me. Like I just do not deny that anything is in me, because if it's in you, and you are connected to source, you're part of source, it's probably in me too. It's dormant, but nonetheless it's there, right? Like the Tao is probably really low. So I do believe all of us are on spectrums. Like even when people are talking about, autism or depression or bipolar, schizophrenia, things that are very conversations in my family often, all these things. I mentioned that too, and I probably mentioned it too as a source of like support, to remind people like, yeah, I know that you've been diagnosed with this, and I have very similar symptoms, right? Like it's just, I guess, not enough to put me in that thing, but nonetheless, I have these symptoms too. Y'all see the way I be around here? So you know what? And I remind, like, even like when I'm talking to my siblings, like I'm not ignoring what people are going through, but I also want to show like they're not the only people, and it doesn't take away from that, but it's just like we don't have to make people feel like they're so different. Like, yes, they are different. We all are, and we all should just be treated in the capacity in which we show up anyway. So it's just like, clearly that's like a very small part of my beliefs, but like, yeah, that's like my big thing about like all of this, like this idea that people are supposed to be able to do all these things. And I'm like, who says? According to who?
Right.
Just because the people, it's just a lot.
Yeah, I think I was speaking to someone recently. So I'm neurodivergent. I experience or have, I'm still working on the language of how I want to identify with it, but I experience bipolar disorder. And that is something that I've known since I was like 12. Very clearly, I've known that since I was 12. However, my coping mechanisms for functioning in this world are so strong that I just like basically ignored it. Like not on purpose, but I just was like downplaying to myself like how much that actually affects me. And one of my teachers recently, I was like expressing like something had happened, And I was like panicking. And I was like, yeah, but anyways, I'll just get through it. And she was like, aren't you bipolar? Like, don't you think that like simply impacts
Mm.
every single thing about how you perceive
Mm.
everything? And I was like, wait a second.
Mm.
There might be something to that. And so I brought that up to say that I don't think it's this idea of like neurotypical and neurodivergent, that's coming from a binary perspective. I think, again, like I've said, like we all have these dials, and it's really just a matter of actually, I'm gonna get on a soapbox real quick. Um, I used to take like these vitamin D drops um, because I love vitamin D, but one of the things it said is like the prescription, not the prescription, but like the amount that you're to use is like one drop, and it gives you X amount of like micrograms. And I remember looking into like, why is this the like, why is 1500 micrograms like the answer, like blah, blah, blah. And it turns out that all, do you know what the word is that I'm trying to look for? It's not diagnoses, but like amount that you're meant to take for medicine. Like,
The dosage?
I apologize. This is, yes, dosage.
Okay.
Thank you. Um, that most dosages and most sort of benchmarks that are used in at least the US medical system are based on middle-aged white men. I really want that to sink in, because what that means is it is not accounting for, in the case of vitamin D, it's not accounting for the fact that I have melanin. And so in truth, for a woman who is Black, I should actually be taking like 3,000 micrograms like during the winter or something like this. Don't quote me on these numbers. I'm just saying like the number was significantly higher than what the dosage on the packet said, because it's for because the benchmark of what is normal is a middle-aged white man. All of this very long. All of this.
First of all, my face is more so because it's like I tried taking vitamins and I did not have a pleasant experience. So
yeah. Anyways, all of that was just to get to, we have to like, I want us to question what these benchmarks are, because there isn't, in my opinion, a neurotypical. There is simply what someone at some point decided was normal.
Yes.
And normal for what? Right? For what purpose? Like the type of school smarts that are prioritized has a lot to do with the Industrial Revolution and like who is going to be good at working. Right? Okay, so like it's just
you say all of the I can have a conversation about. That's why sometimes I just don't even want to talk, because I'm like, what the fuck, whatever. Like, what research? Who created this research? Show me the hypothesis. Tell me how they surveyed the people. Like, I have.
And what was their objective? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's what's important. Because I'm not even saying that this is incorrect. No, I'm just saying, what is your intention behind this? What do you want to do with this information?
I think
that's all.
I don't know, I'm trying to think of like what I used to have a Afro Latina. That's how she used to introduce herself. Professor, PhD, Zola was her name, from at NYU. She was cute. But she used to like have us ask questions like that. To whom and for what? To whom and for what? To whom and for what? That was like her question all the time to us. I'm pretty sure that was it. I don't know what it was, but it was always about us like questioning what was the intent. And so that's why I love policy work. So I'm obsessed with policy in a sense of just like observing. Even like in school, like administrative law was like my thing. And then I really love procedural things, like stuff like that matters to me, because I need to know what the goal was, what the aim was, because I'm wondering if there was another way. Because that's my whole thing. Like, you trying to say it's only this one way, but I'm just like, well, with this goal, I can see 8 other ways to get there. You know, so it's like, for me, that's the kind of question. And it's, for me, I don't give a shit about right or wrong, really. I'm just saying, are there other ways besides this
Mm-hmm.
absolute conclusion? If you have an absolute
Right.
conclusion, I kind of am going to poke holes on it, just because I just need to know we all saved.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is something that is hard for me to say out loud because it's not fully formulated, but I kind of think about everybody is right for their particular purpose. When I was younger, actually, I'm sorry, I really have to consider if I can stand on this in 90 days.
Oh yeah, because I can say something and be like, I don't read that tomorrow, and be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I don't have actually a way to convey this message that feels like not harmful. So I will just kind of skim around it and say that I think it's not necessarily that I don't believe people. It's not necessarily that I think um, certain things are wrong. I just think that we need to really ask that question of what is the goal? Because it's right, like capitalism, for instance, is the correct way to get to wealth inequality, if that's your goal, right? It's the correct way to get to wealth hoarding, if that's your goal. And so in that case, it is correct, right? But is that our goal? Right? Like I want to bypass basically the right or wrong, because we can argue how everything is correct for its purpose.
Yes,
and I want us to talk about the purpose.
I love that. Yep. Yeah. It's just so I think too, because maybe these conversations, I don't know how often you get to have these conversations, and I have like started conversations similarly, but I know too that everybody's on their journey where they are, right? And there's some things that can really activate others more than, you know what I mean? Like there's this whole, what people, so I know that sometimes what I say can feel like a trigger / activation for people because of the lens I come from. And so I don't feel like I always get the opportunity to have these conversations or say these things because, like you mentioned earlier, it could be harmful. But yeah, like, thank you so much for even like saying these things, because I too have been having these conversations, clearly more in private. Clearly I'm going to start talking about it out loud because I want to connect with people who want to connect with me, and like knowing my truth is the most important thing you can do. I used to believe, and I used to tell people all the time, like, if you really knew what I believed, you probably wouldn't like me. Because like it's just what it is, because like I feel like I started to question a lot of life, right? Like once I had my big awakening, I'm like, I do want to question, I got some questions for some of these things. I do question things. And it's not just necessarily, and like you were saying, like it's not that it's necessarily wrong, but like, what's the goal? What was the purpose? Because I am that person that if I ask you and you be like, well, and I mean, people may, let me not use that as an example then, because I don't want people to be aggy.
I hope I'm not conditioning you.
This is like legit how I am. Like, so say for instance, people come up with a rule, right? They have a rule at the job that you can't wear your hair. Clearly, we know this is not legal. Whatever. That you can't wear your hair in braids, right? And I'm just like, you can't wear braids, you can't wear locks, you need to have loose hair. That's what it says. And I'm like, what's the purpose of that, right? And if they honestly say to me, oh, we don't want too much ethnic looking things around here, like you gotta, we just don't want that. As much as I think it's like harmful, if that's their truth and that's their aim, like I'm the kind of person that would be like, thank you for that honesty. That's just how I am. And not saying I would stick around, I'm gonna hang around with you and all that, but I'm also not going to like, it's problematic. I don't need to tell you that, right? So I'm not a person that's gonna necessarily want to fight you for, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just how I am. Like, I'm not saying like I will respond that way to everything, but there's just some things that I just like, there's something about you just being honest about what your aim is me being like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
fuckery, but I'm out of this. Like, that's your life. Like,
Yeah.
that's who you are. It's cool. I'm out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also not necessarily going to fight with you about where you stand.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
I
Charlie,
don't know.
I literally have a like 30-minute voice note about that
Oh,
particular thing. Because for me, what I'm not going to tell, it's not my job to change your mind. It's not my job to tell you what values to have, because everyone has autonomy in that. But what I hate is when you express values and your choices say something different. Okay. So I would much rather that you speak to me and say, no, I do not care enough about you to give you the emotional support that you need, than for you to be like, no, I love you, and then do violence to me.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if I should do a trigger warning on that, but like that is like an experience that I've had many times in my life where I'm like, just say that you're going to be violent. Like it's so wild to me that people are so unwilling. And that's like another thing with self-awareness where it's like, I have been in relationship with some people, not just romantic relationship, like just
Yeah.
relationship, with some people who do make promises that they have no intention of keeping, but they're so blind to that. Like they literally cannot see that they have no intention of keeping this
So
promise, right?
I'm over here smiling and laughing because a couple of weeks, it had to be a couple of months now. I was on here talking about Aquarius, but you go ahead.
No, I
Because
mean
of
like
very
that's
similar
it.
things.
Yeah,
Because
it's
of
that. It's just yeah.
Yeah, it's because
Look
of
at us
very,
trying to talk
yeah,
to.
I'm like, because of very similar things. But and I think it goes back to that awareness. And there's a couple of, right, I'm generalizing these signs from my experience because I'm about to say this. There's a couple of like energies that I've experienced. Like Aquarius is one when it comes to like they love me, they love me, they love me, but then they want to tell me who to be. Don't
Mm,
say this, don't do that, and then like kind of gaslight me on how I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm so confused about what's happening, but I recognize
mm,
that they aren't always aware of like how they're expressing, um, and that they think that they're doing this, whatever they think they're doing, they really believe it. And so my belief is just that their brain, that spectrum, just ain't there. Okay, and some
mm,
part of their brain, like there's something just cut off to where, and I think I feel the same way about masculine. I'm gonna be clear because I don't want nobody masculine presenting Capricorns. Okay, because I can presenting
you mean
Capricorn
me?
if that's the energy. But so right, because that's your rising, right? You said or
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so masculine presenting Capricorns are another one where
Mm-hmm.
right, and clearly this also we got to take into account whatever other placements they got, but everyone I've met, and I was raised by one, um, they have a very strong traditional idea of how life works, and like for whatever reason, if it's not in their reality, it doesn't exist. So like I can't get them to see what's possible sometimes because I'm like, yo, like, but look, this can happen. They're like, but it ain't gonna happen. No, you can't guarantee that. And I'm like, but does it matter? I don't need to guarantee it. And I was raised by
Mm-hmm.
one, so it was very different trying to get support from a parent who's just like, but their brain just doesn't work like that. Like it literally, like my dad would like cut me off all these things. So like, cause he was like scared for me, right? Like I get it now,
Yeah.
but it took a little while for me to understand like there's just some people like it's just the way they're designed, it's just, and I hear it from
It's
other
just not for
people,
you.
and I hear it from other people who are like married to Cap, they say the same energy, and I'm like, yeah, but like y'all trying to change them into something they not, and I don't understand that part,
Mm,
right? Like if you
mm,
already, all these signs you're talking about, they're really like usually grounded in that identity. They're usually grounded in those beliefs like very strongly. So the only person that can usually change that is them. And they have to be willing to. And so you can't force certain people to like be where you want them to be because that's just ain't in their makeup. And I be like so intrigued when people are trying to change Capricorns. I'm like, how? The only I've never seen it, but to each his own.
On the other side of this, like a sign that I have always loved and never understood what like people didn't like is Geminis. I love a Gemini. I love how you flip. I love those 17 faces. Like my sister is a Gemini. My two favorite artists are Geminis. My nibblings are Geminis. Like I love that energy. I think it's really fun. I like that you're kind of evil. I think I want to like I like to lean in. Like
Yeah.
so I've never understood this like fear of Geminis. Definitely a moment where I'm like, that sounds like a you problem. Like sounds like you're not grounded in yourself enough to enjoy all the fun and energy they're bringing to me.
Yes. So, and that's another thing I started to. This is another practice I have when it comes to like, going back to human design again. Like when we're thinking about that, you know, human design has invited me too. Like you were saying, it's a compassion. I didn't even think about that, but yes, because even now, when say if somebody's being loud, right? If you're being loud, and all of a sudden I get activated, now I got an attitude. And I'm like, I will ask myself, like, what about the expression don't you feel free in? Because why can't you accept that expression, regardless of why you think it's happening? They get to express, girl. So it also, human design has also invited me to a lot of check-ins. Like I'm constantly like, which helps like with resistance, not resisting them, not resisting myself. Because I noticed too, like a lot of the people I was dating, they didn't have the capacity to emotionally support me, and I am an emotional being. So in human design, I'm non-emotional, but like the way I get to feel the emotions, I have an open solar plexus. So what I get to experience is a whole other vibe, and people might not always understand that. And so I had to learn that like it's okay if people don't get it, but I also don't have to stick around because it doesn't feel good. And being okay with stuff like that, and being okay with leaving relationships and walking away without feeling like I gotta yell and argue with you, and we gotta absolutely hate each other in order for us to be like, this doesn't work. Now it's just like, no, this just, I think you're a great friend, but when it comes to a relationship, it's just what I'm seeking. This isn't it. And so like that was something else. I felt more mature.
Oh, I feel like the greatest gift that I have recently like rediscovered is like minding my own fucking business. Period. Like it is a strategy. If you do nothing else in life but mind your own business, the amount of peace, like I think that is like the core of peace.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying? Like the gifts, the pleasure, the lifestyle that I have been able to create by simply minding my own business. And I mean that both from the standpoint of this does not align with me and I'm not going to try and change it, as well as like when someone is trying to like put something onto me. Hi, Julie. When someone is trying to put something onto me, just being like, actually, this is not about me, like depersonalizing. That has been just really like one of my biggest keys to success.
Yes, I love that, because that is another one. Yep. I'm gonna make that snippet a post by itself, because that is, I resonate with that, and that's what I've been talking about, like the peace I've been experiencing over these last couple of years, just realizing what it took, which is a lot of it was just letting go of my judgments, letting go of this need to control people and things around me. It's just so interesting because I think about like the conditioning, like it makes sense why I was the way I was, because the way I was told to be, and this goes back to early years. Like this is a side note, but this just came up, so I'm gonna mention it. But like I think about when I was in high school. So when I was really young, I got in trouble for like messing around with like a girl. Like I got caught. I don't know if I got caught by a sibling or my dad, but whatever. No, it had to be a sibling because my dad would probably react so differently. So it was like a sibling. They told him. I ended up getting in trouble. So I get to high school. Right. So mind you, no one had to talk with me. No one had to talk with me. It was just a whipping. Go about your business. So I get to high school and kids are, the kids are dating. They are dating. the women are dating women. You know, everybody's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, wow, you're going to get in trouble. 14, like, you're going to get in trouble. Like, you shouldn't be dating. You can't do that. And I think back now, and I'm like, you were really projecting because you couldn't date, according to your parents, you couldn't do that. As soon as I turned 18, you had a little girlfriend, like, yeah, okay, this is the life. Hey. But, you know, it took a little, but I just think back to, like, how it starts, you know, what that journey might look like. Because I'm thinking about, I cannot not remember that. Like, because now every time I'm, like, denying somebody their way of living, I'm checking in with myself, like, why is that an issue? Why is that a problem, right? And, like, as much as, like, yes, mind your business too, but, like, I'm also, I want to decondition. I want to let that shit out. I want that stuff going. And so, like, when that comes up to our awareness, we get to reprogram ourselves. That's an opportunity to, like, let that out, acknowledge why it existed, but also, like, put something new in its place, a new belief in its place. And that belief can be like, I'm minding my business. They get to love freely. Okay, keep it moving. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Like, I'm just really thinking about it. Like, yeah, it started so young, and look at that one story, how it moved to my high school years and came into my adult years, and you know, it's just the way this journey is. It's just like, oh.
Yeah, Charlie, I'm feeling my body telling me, it's time.
I appreciate you so much. Well, this is a great talk. We got to talk about so many different things. I'm so happy to have this talk with you, to get to know you. I will be in touch. Well, at least stalking your page, you know, not too much. But Athena, thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. Thank you for your time, your energy, your wisdom, all the nuggets you dropped. I will be sure to, like, repost.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here, and I really appreciate your questions and, like, this space that we created here.
Do you feel like you got to say everything you needed to, and do you want to, like, share anything with us before you go?
Yeah, I would like to share that I'm actually taking this user manual information and I'm packaging it for people. So based off of human design charts. Okay, sorry, quick story. I when I found human design, I was so annoyed because I felt like it took everything that I accumulated over years and was just like, here it is, outplaying. Like, duh, this is something that you're out, like, this is a wound that you have. This is a way that you function. And so I just remember being like, wow, so you just laid it out just clear like this? Okay. So from working with human design, I've actually been able to see how I can make user manuals for other people. Now, it's not going to be like, it's not full because everyone has to experience into their own selves. However, I'm making user manuals. I think I'm calling them Calm Through Chaos. I don't know what they're called yet. But the point is, it's built to help people ground and, like, find some self-stability through transformation, especially if you are a very spiritual person, if you're, like, very divinely tapped in. There are times in which it feels like the world is shattering, and we were actually talking about this with just, like, sometimes when you're in that awakening, you're just like, oh man, everything is wrong, I have to, like, change it all, and it can feel so devastating. And so what my aim is with the user manual is just to help give you grounding exercises and practices that that serve to give you, like, stability, to give you just one thing that, like, feels familiar and comfortable to focus on while you're in this transition, like, going through this transformation. So if people are interested in that, they can DM me. I'm going to be making them public very soon. So also feel free to follow me and you'll hear about it. But if you're interested, like, right now, feel free to DM me and yeah, we'll talk more.
Yay. Okay. So, but before we go, one thing. If you could, I kept the question. If you could tell one past version of yourself anything, what would you say?
That's so funny. Honestly, I don't think it would have mattered. I can, because the way that I'm stubborn, the way that I have to like, that even though I see everyone else, like if you touch fire, it's gonna burn you. There's still a part of my brain that's like, I I could probably touch it and not get burned. Like it's not that I don't believe you. Again, it's just that I really need to feel it for myself to
Mhm.
like to think it's for real true. So it really doesn't matter. I know
Yeah,
that's like an unorthodox experience or answer, but like
I love it.
I could say anything to myself and it I'm almost certain it would not have mattered.
Yeah, I love it. You know, this line three gets it. She's like, I get it. Do what you want.
Yeah.
It's all good. It was all worth it. And look, we're here now. So here we are, and you're amazing.
Yeah.
So there's that. Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I hope you have a great day on purpose.
You
And I
too.
appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.